Hello, and welcome to this 23rd video in the series of reflections on the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, verses 1, 2, and 3. We are currently on the third verse and looking at the first word in that verse, which is energy, teja, simply translated as energy. This is actually the second video, part 2 of looking at that word. So video 22, you really should take a look at that. This is literally a direct continuation. I just hit the button and then we're moving on. So nevertheless, and especially since the first one, not only was it energetic, but it got us into all sorts of interesting areas, to say the least. So we always start with just coming to rest, and what's ever happened before this is gone, and we just come back to the present. So I'm using an exercise that I've mentioned that has been given by the School of Practical Philosophy, essentially to just come to rest, be aware of your body sitting in the chair, standing or lying down, depending upon where you are. And just let all the thoughts that come, let them go. Don't hold on to anything. Well, good. And as I said before, really 2 to 3 minutes minimally would be good to help clear things out a bit. You can put the video on pause, whatever method is to your liking here. Let's see where we are. So, okay. Just as a reminder, and again, I really, most of the time I say it doesn't matter the order, but really this is part 2 of looking at energy. But let me just read through some of these things and we will pick this up again from a slightly different point of view. But let's get back to the definitions. Here we have tejas, the sharp edge of a knife, etc., point or top of a flame or ray, glow, glare, splendor, brilliance, light, fire, clearness of the eyes, the bright appearance of the human body in health, beauty, the heating and strengthening facility of the human frame seated in the bile. We have fire, energy, ardor, vital power, spirit, efficacy, essence. We looked at spiritual or moral or magical power or influence, dignity, glory, authority, etc. And actually all the roots are condensed down just in the interest of time. All basically had to do with being sharp, being bright, being brilliant. Now, just as a reminder from part 1, we looked at these words first, and while we, at least I, again, concluded that a lot of these qualities are qualities that we look for in a human, especially somebody who we would either want working for us, with us, partnered with. Like anything, moderation is the key. Pardon me there. And while we may enjoy somebody who knows how to exercise the power that the energy brings, there is, alas, almost more than any other of these qualities, there is a terrible danger of being intoxicated with power and authority. It is, and so we spent a lot of time on that. And again, it really is a grab. And again, I'm speaking to you from America in 2020, right before the election. If you're an American and you're not thinking about somebody grabbing absolute power and authority for forever and ever, you've been under a rock for a long time. So it is definitely a thought on everybody's minds. That said, let's leave that aside, because I think we covered that at length in the first part of this. Let's take a look, however, at why. What is attractive? And it's the same thing, unfortunately, that with ill will, makes for dictators. But without ill will, without malice, without hatred, without dishonesty, let's take a look at why is this considered a godly quality, which automatically translates into a human quality, and what has been said about it. And I normally jump back and forth in these, either between Hinduism with the Gita, or the Upanishads, depending upon what we're talking about, and Christianity. And if I can find something in Zen or a Buddhist text or what have you, we'll add that in too. But in the part one of this, I kind of specifically did not jump into Christianity, the New Testament, because I wanted to give it its due. Much as I said before that, Krishna was no dummy, and, he wasn't just la la la, wouldn't it be all nice if we were happy together? I mean, he's giving this advice in the middle of what's going to be the greatest war in all of India. This is not the time for, let's all be happy and peaceful and, put flowers in our hair and stuff. It's not the time. And as I read to you in that second part, you're well aware of each of these qualities. There's one side and the other, okay? Now, Jesus offered similar advice along the way, but with the idea, and maybe again, each of these is both, if Jesus says something, if Krishna says something, if the Buddha says something, they have both a universal quality to them and an individual. Now, if you get good at not lying, or if you first of all stop lying, let's take them in order. If you first of all stop lying, which you got to do right away, then there's a chance you could get good at telling the truth, which is, as we've talked about before, two different things. Once you get used to telling the truth about something, what happens is, even though you may be addressing a particular situation, the universality of what's said, because it's backed by truth, it's backed by godly qualities, then becomes available. And so even though, whether it's Krishna here or Jesus, as we're about to look at, is saying something specific to those around them, in this case Arjuna, Jesus with his disciples, task and a half on that one, or the multitudes, whoever, it may be specific, okay, and yet the universal gets to come through, which is just a marvelous, beautiful thing. I always just shake my head during these things, because I got to go back to the first videos, and say, well, just remind me, all you people in the comments, why exactly do you want somebody who's dishonest and lying to you and trying to grab your possession? I mean, because we've been through the real world stuff with this, but you're going to have to remind me why you would want somebody around you who's perpetually dishonest, lying, deceitful, full of malice and hate. I don't know. I don't know, but we're not going to concern ourselves about this at this point. We're going to take a look at, however, making use of energy, making use of your gifts. So even though even though I'm reading from our godly qualities in the Gita, I'm going to jump over to Christianity for a little bit. Jesus had a lot to say, and I don't think he ever called it energy, and he certainly wasn't speaking Sanskrit over there. But there are any number of parables about letting the light of God shine through. And I think that's the proper way to approach it. We may have taken every one of these, I don't need this right now, we may have taken every one of these and said they're either godly or they're human, and we think that, oh, well, they belong to us. Now, of course, that's one of our greatest sins, is we steal everything, you know. I mean, you get up in the morning, you can breathe, your heart beats, the air is there, and like Daffy Duck in, you know, mine, 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 mine. And I think the seagulls in some movie, mine, 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 mine. As I've said, you know, the essence of modern humans is it's all about me. But really, when we're talking about these qualities, if you have the slightest opening in your heart, right? Because that's what it is, because that's what me and mine does. Closes the heart completely. We talk about a heart of stone, hard-hearted. It's not like you don't have one. You've just filled it up with, you know, your stuff. I'm not sure what you're allowed to say on YouTube here, but fill in the blanks, okay, people? If you are hard-hearted, and hard-headed for that matter, you are not letting that light. In Hinduism, it's called the light of the Atman. Certainly in Christianity, it'd be the light of God, the Holy Spirit for another way of looking at it. But every single action that you perform, every single word that you say, every breath you take, every movement you make, got bad news, people. You didn't do any of it. Now, once you realize that, then you go, that's good news, okay? But unfortunately, we're all thieves, and we get up and I did this, I did that, this is mine. Yeah, America's the land of the self-made man. I get that. And this is not to say that you don't get out there and do your duty. We've talked about duty before rights. We've talked about, I think I've done, how many times have I mentioned shoveling the snow in front of your house so people can walk up and down and not get hurt? I mean, we need to perform actions. The creation is itself activity. In fact, it is nothing but activity. But the thanks, the giving thanks for this energy, for this light, has to be done. And so eventually gets around there. They're big circles, but we eventually get there. So Jesus spent a lot of time talking about, you know, not putting your light under a bushel. No man hides their light. We know the phrase "city on a hill," letting the light shine forth. Kind of the first, you know, if you were going to do new commandments, right? Now, Jesus did give a couple in there. You know, love God, love the neighbor as thyself. If you were going to add a little bit more to that, in taking from his words, it's let that light shine through unimpeded. He who would save his life will lose it. Saving your life is, yeah, God, that's nice, but let me tell you my story about how I think things should go here. And that's fine. You can tell your story. You can take that light and twist it any way you want. And unfortunately, you do that long enough, you become unable. It gets lost in the jungle of your heart, which is a dark jungle. I mentioned Dante a lot. The Divine Comedy starts off midway through life. I found myself in a dark forest, you know, lost. So there's not a person. For those who are into really, you know, bad stuff, okay, there isn't a person in the world who can stop you from doing what you want, good or bad. However, there's a price to everything, and the longer you practice ill will, dishonesty, lying, malice, and all the other hatred and anger, the less you're able to get out of it. And then finally, you have dug yourself a hole of epic proportions that then becomes necessary to practically have a miracle to get you out of it. And so when in the New Testament we find Jesus talking about letting that light shine through, what you would get, see, I need it again anyway, but what you would get is this beautiful, splendor, brilliance, light. I just love the beauty, bright appearance of the human body. You would get everything that people try to get by Botox naturally. Naturally. The light would shine through. And we talked about that. Now, the other thing that goes with this, and I didn't find a direct correlation in these qualities with the kind of the second way that Jesus talks about this. You know, we're getting the idea of letting the light of God shine through, okay? And then if it can't get through, which for all of us, we got our stuff, as I said, you know, how much of a twist and how does what starts out pure and truthful end up out of your mouth? We talked about, in fact, we actually read the quotes about the difficulty is your actions, your speech, okay? Your speech reflects what's in and what you've been practicing. And here I can only, I think it doesn't matter, I was going to say a few weeks ago, but every 2 weeks there's somebody who's caught with a hot mic, right? Saying terrible, terrible things about various members of society. And they all go, oh, I'm sincerely sorry. That's not what I meant to say. Even if that part is true, the fact of the matter is, whether the mic is on or not, the only way that comes out of you is that that's what's in your heart and your mind. And most of the time, you're putting a little bit of control on it so you don't say anything like these things. But the fact of the matter is, that's the cesspool you're living in. And to think that you're going to try to fool the world by living in a cesspool, and as we would say, and then I come out for my public appearance and I'm all a bed of roses. Well, first of all the rest of us can see your stuff. So, for me to believe any apology that comes out after somebody, whether it's a racial slur or something against however people act or as they are or consider themselves, it's not a random incident. It's not like, gee, how did that happen? It happened because that's what you're thinking all the time. And you're smart enough, because you want to keep your job and you want to keep getting paid, you're smart enough to not say that stuff out loud. But the minute you're off, and whatever the case may be, it's not an indication of a slip. It's an indication of your state of mind. And so, for all of these, letting this light through, using the energy wisely, the suggestion is to the betterment of your fellow human beings. Who wants a neighbor who moves into the neighborhood and starts putting rusty automobiles out on their front lawn, or doesn't paint their house for forever, or whatever the case may be? Your stuff impacts those around. I gave some physical examples there, but more often than not, your mental attitude, your attitude of what you're holding in the heart is what's coming out. And so, again, going back to what was said, we have, don't hide the light. Don't be hard-hearted so that the truth has to go through your stuff and it comes out as this kind of horror of insulting words for everybody. And finally, which is kind of really what I'm trying to get to with this, I think there's at least more than one parable given in terms of fruitfulness and multiplying. The one that springs to mind right away is, the master went away and gave coins to the three servants, right? And the master goes away, and however that goes, and comes back, and the first one says, Master, I did this, this, and this with it, and have increased, and he is that, and very good, my faithful servant. And the second one said, well, and he's like, I always think of the three bears here. He's like, okay, he could do, a little bit, but he did something with what he had. And the master says, very good, and you're going to get this. And the third one, who gives him the excuse of, well, I know you are a harsh master and this and that, and I was all afraid and I didn't want to do anything. I just took the coins and buried them in the ground, and here's your coins back. And boom, this guy loses whatever, and gets kind of kicked out because we're not married. We're not meant to bury this beautiful energy and this beautiful light. Somebody had been, when we've been talking about this, what constitutes sin, and I talked about, when it was Lent time, or when again, I was brought up Catholic, and you go and confess when you're a 9-year-old, I thought this bad thing about this person, that person, but, really, I mean, the sins that we're almost in a constant state, unfortunately, one of stealing straight from God, thinking that you're doing everything when, in fact, as a very wise gentleman who said, you don't even know how that happens, let alone how you think and how thoughts come by, and the second one just went straight out of my mind here because I got carried away. It will come back to me. And then the other sin, of course, is taking a whole lifetime, taking a human embodiment, taking a chance to display the finest qualities of the creation and throwing it away. Poof. Yeah, I went and buried it. I didn't want to do anything. I was afraid. That's why fearlessness is the first one, isn't it? In some ways, I do find myself repeating a bit. My apologies for that. But in its simplicity, let this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine, and then see what happens. Now, of course, we get a list of 26 godly qualities. We get, 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You get all sorts of things to keep repeating it and repeating. All right, they didn't get it this way. Let's try it this way. Okay, as again, going back to that, there's plenty of grace there. It's just that if, in fact, let's see if I can. I don't have anything to throw in my head, but if I'm gonna go through life like this. You can. You really can. Nothing here prevents you from doing anything that you pretty well want. And judging by the current state of things, people do. Is that the most useful for the creation? Or if you don't want to go that far, is that the most useful for the world? And do you even think about, this is where we get back to this energy and hiding it and stealing. Okay, thou shalt not steal. It doesn't just mean not going to Walmart and picking up whatever the most expensive item is off the shelf. It's stealing everything that's been given to you for the use of everybody and just keeping it for myself. There's enough. There is enough. And there is more than enough. One doesn't need to live in a state of want. There's plenty. There's plenty of light. But yes, just like we all went out and bought toilet paper and water, we can all gather it up and steal it and keep it hidden and back here. And it doesn't just apply to the physical world, although we certainly do a lot of that. And we talked way back at the beginning about certain countries in Africa where the military or whoever's in power, military government, basically keeps the water from the citizens. Wow. Talk about a high crime. Talk about straight to the lowest levels of hell you're going to go. And you're pretty well living there now anyway. But all of this is meant to say that this energy, this beauty, this authority, this dignity is meant for the good of all. You get to be a good king or a good leader by loving your subjects, by loving everyone around you and doing as best for them as you can. That's a tricky little deal because the people up north, and I'll just say England because of the kings, people up north may have different needs than the people down south or the people by the coast or the people by the farmland. You've got to stay awake through all of this, which I've also been saying. That's what this energy is for. It's to stay awake. Actually, we're going to get to fortitude a little bit later. So you have the ability to have at your disposal. It is great energy, great power, brilliance, splendor, glow about you, right? I think the only time we generally use that is when the ladies are pregnant and you know, oh, got that beautiful glow. Yes, yeah, because you've at least got one part of that body that's got the direct light going through, okay? And usually the moms are a little more, you know, you almost got two with the beautiful light going through on that. But just think of how much darkness can be lifted with the proper use of this energy, of this power, of this light, of this splendor. And again, the second difficulty here is we all want that. I mean, if somebody said, how would you like to be king for a day? You know, oh, yeah. Now, of course, what we really mean about on that is people are going to wait on us hand and foot and whatever kind of quickly gets down to fantasy land, whatever your fantasy is of being king and queen. But it generally means you over here, you know, I need this, I want that. And I'm not talking about that. I am talking about a person of regal, glorious splendor, elegance, and care and compassion for those who have, in fact, care for an entire country. And certainly been a subject here in America for the past few months. But whether it's Jesus trying to give a bit of advice on how to get that light to be out and pure and useful, or it's Krishna talking about it to Arjuna, who's going to have quite a task ahead of him here. And again, I unfortunately did not go to other scriptures to see what's said about it, but I don't know if it's necessary. We all are able to see who embodies these qualities. And generally, you know, when they say, you know, people who are, you know, loved by all, now, of course, nobody's loved by all, but, you know, in general, people will, they're going to give them at least, a 9.8 or something like that on the scale. But they're going to have this quality about them of almost boundless energy, beautiful brilliance, beautiful splendor, dignity about them. And again, all the other qualities, a compassion for all, a care for all, a harmlessness to all, an honesty. And again, they mean, you know, you can just kind of do scenes from a hat here and just keep, in fact, I might want to do that, right? Just put the words in and pick them up. Harmlessness, truthfulness. So I hope that lightened it up a little bit here in part 2. It's a big subject. And as I said, these are small, even though the fact that these things run 40, 50 minutes, these two I think are going to be close to an hour. You can say, just skimming through. He's taking an hour apiece on each of these things. Yes, they're important subjects. I mean, that's why people have whole classes of study in this. It's an important subject. It is our duty and our obligation as human beings to our fellow human beings. It's important. And so it needs the time. So with that, we are going to put this on pause for a little bit. We're going to get back from part 2. I think we could probably keep it short. Without going into too much more detail, I think we can kind of close up the subject of energy and power and splendor and might. But let's see what we have to say in the second part of this. As you know, I take a few minutes, give you guys a few seconds in between. We'll be back in a little bit. Well, welcome back to the second half of this second video on Teja energy. I believe in the time that we have taken, we've covered a number of aspects of it. As I said at the end of the first half, this is a rather large subject. And almost like purity of being or purity of heart, we're really close to the essence of what makes us humans. Okay? We have, one of them is, we have the ability to channel the light of God, the light of the self, the light of the absolute, the light of creation, which, I'm mostly going to say either absolute or God, because I don't have to run through, all of them on these. But in any case, in whatever way you believe, the fact of the matter is, you got here, and you're going to leave, and right now in between, you're animated, and whatever power that is that you believe animates you, even if you believe it's just the chemicals in your body, okay, go for it, because the end result is the same. You are here, you are filled with energy, that energy powers you, so we can play the violin or trumpet or paint or speak, whatever, every single action as a human being. And it's true for the animals, they just have a lot less choice about things. But we're speaking here about humans, and human beings are powered. This is dead. This is done, dead and gone. Somebody said you might as well say my jacket's alive, because it comes up, it comes down, this and that. And it's the same with the bodies. They're dead as a doornail. But our light, our energy, our splendor, our brilliance, our fire, that's what's moving. That's what's moving it. And there shouldn't be anybody here on the planet above the age of, let's say, 3 who hasn't been to a funeral and could tell the difference between, live and dead. So here we are. We have this energy. We have this fire, this glow, this beauty, this energy and ardor. And it is available for use in any way that you desire. And that desire and how that manifests and how you use your energies is the direct result of what you've been practicing. All the old jokes are good, right? I mean, we did Doc, it hurts when I do that. Don't do that. And how do you get to Carnegie Hall is the other. Practice. I mean, how do you get to be a vile, contemptible, despicable, hateful, malicious, rotten person? How do you get there? Step by step by step, practice. And you may blame all the circumstances of the world you want on it, but you always have the choice. And so it works for the same way. How do you get to be a truthful, honest, compassionate, harmless, forgiving, full of energy person? Practice, practice, practice. Again, I end in the same place all the time. It's all up to you. Whatever you want to do, you do. That's it. I mean, that's got to be for the current mindset of America. Of who are you to tell me what to do? I ain't telling you to do anything. The only person you have to listen to, in fact, the only person you do listen to, is what's going through your mind. Now, if that mind is clouded with hateful thoughts, with lying thoughts, with deceitful thoughts and stuff like that, the probability is pretty good that your actions are going to follow from that. Practice, practice, practice. So, again, you can and you do. I mean, I'm talking about it like, yeah, you can do what you want. Well, the fact of the matter is, everybody, including me, does what they want to do. And there's nothing to stop you. You do what you want to do. Even say, well, if I gotta go to work, and stuff like that. Well, you're doing that because you've evaluated and you decided that going to work and listening to your boss and spending whatever time in overtime or losing vacation days or whatever, the good and the bad of that's still worth it, given the money you get, and it keeps your family with a roof over their heads and so on. But in no way, shape, or form should we ever delude ourselves into thinking that we were forced into our situation. We aid and abet wherever we are. That's just the truth of the matter. The only reason that I am going through these videos and putting them out is in case somebody thinks, gee, I wonder if there's another way. I wonder if there's a way of conducting my life, of living my life, that doesn't make me miserable all the time. And it's like, here's a suggestion, only a suggestion, but here's one. And again, I'd like to see two. One is I'd like to see somebody else take these same words and reflect upon them and see, what they get. I would be thrilled to listen to that. And it might be a little more frightening, but I really would like all of these rights people, and nobody can tell me what to do, and who are you to say, or nobody can say what's right and wrong. I'd love to see that presented too, because as I said, it's all very theoretical up until somebody comes to your house and starts, trying to steal your car or your furniture or your stereo and stuff. Then all of a sudden, right and wrong comes in, okay? So, yeah, we're liars and hypocrites and stuff like that. But you know what? You don't have to be. And really, all of these are just a reminder to what you already know. And they are little reminders, kind of like the birds, trying to empty the sea. You start little bit by bit, we start to empty. And then who knows, the creation comes to your aid and can wipe out your whole mess in no time. Like that. But it doesn't happen. The creation is not going to force you to do anything. So if you're willing, if you are attracted to some of these qualities that we've been talking about here, if they have an appeal, if they make something go off in your mind and, you go, it's just like solving a problem at work. We do a lot of, computer problems, and every once in a while you go, aha, if I use this and that, it's kind of a nice feeling. And, it comes and goes and you're on to the next thing. But imagine, really just imagine that some of this stuff actually gets through your thick head and your even thicker heart. People around you will be very, very happy, okay? And if you don't want to make the people around you happy, that's your business. But I would always ask, why. And so, as I said, I'm going to kind of keep this part short. We've talked a lot, but we are given, in addition, it's kind of the inner and outer meeting here. We have this abundant grace raining down by the microsecond or nanosecond or whatever. Continual, abundant, beautiful grace raining down, meeting up, and this is where it all goes wrong, and people say that, right, meeting up. And what is it going to meet? What is it going to find? You don't have to wait for Judgment Day, people. What is in your heart right now? And if you think along those lines, or if you're, again, and I read you the demonic stuff, if you think, ain't nothing here, hereafter, whatever, where it's all about eat, drink, and marry, and whatever, fine. Now, if your thoughts are run a different way, what does the ever-abundant grace meet up with? What does that look like? We've talked about the cup. We've talked about this kind of solid concrete around it. But what the grace above should be meeting is the grace within. And then again, the mountain will move if you tell it to. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I think we actually ended calm. Given the subject was energy, I think we ended up pretty calm. So we've seen a couple of sides to it. We've talked about light, splendor, dignity, power, all of that from there. And again, could go on a lot more, but I think that this is one, as it were, near and dear to our hearts, and that we would understand. And the question is, and I know I say it a lot, I've been kind of going through the videos, trying to pick out themes and what have you, and I know that the question is, wilt thou be made whole? I think is the one from the Christian Bible. Wilt thou be made whole? Because right now it's a mess in there. It's like boulders and what have you, and the inner light has to climb a few mountains itself to get out there and shine for everybody else around you. So let's make it easier, okay? Grace from above, light from within. People might stop walking to the other side of the street when they see you coming. You never know. All right, people, that's it for now. We will, of course, move on to the next word, which is forgiveness, another beautiful trait that we could speak about. But I did want to give energy at least a little of its due. It's almost as close to the essence of what we are as humans as anything is. This energy, this light, this letting of the light out. Let your love flow. Da, 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 da. I don't sing too much of the songs, because I hear then you sing too much, either YouTube takes it down or you have to pay royalties. Let your love flow, let your light shine, be a beacon and a lighthouse for everyone around you. You will do immense good for people who could use a hand. Okay? So with that, I leave you, and again, plenty of cat videos out on the internet. Have a look at them. Until next time, be good, do good.